these slopes, the air circulates much faster and better.
So it compresses the air.
Compresses the air and directs to all around the underground city. The second purpose is for the enemy.
Yeah.
You cannot go all together. You and I cannot walk in there together.
So this is
we need to go one by one, and we need to bend down. And if we have weapons, we need to put them down, and like walking like this.
Okay.
So this is the reason.
The enemy.
Yes, this arms the enemy. That's why.
Oh, that's cool.
The narrow tunnel would slow the enemy assault to a crawl. And for those determined enough to go through, there were more surprises ahead.
What are these?
Those are for the spears.
The spears?
Yeah, just in case the enemy gets all the way here.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So they're actually, I can see all the way up here.
Yeah.
So
they kill the enemy by the head.
So if you've gotten this far in your attack, you're not going to go any farther because
you're dead.
This way. Wow. Oof, and that's not going to be pretty.
But the defensive traps didn't end there.
All right.
Even if you were saved from the spears, you can't go any further because of this. The door will be closed in front of you.
This door comes into play.
It was a millstone used to trap an enemy, just like the ones I had seen at Götetoprek. And while the Christians have the Hittites to thank for first carving out these fortresses centuries before, they deserve the credit for taking the idea of a subterranean booby-trapped battlefield to a whole new level. One of the new tactics they came up with was to let the invading armies enter a main room, roll the millstones to cover the only two entrances, and essentially trap the army inside until they died. As if that wasn't enough, just beyond the door was yet another deadly obstacle.
In this room, up here, this is a very famous Byzantine system. Pour hot oil over the enemy.
So you've managed to get inside this room.
Inside. Now you're killed by the oil.
Oh my God.
Yes.
If the Christian villagers had retreated this far into their underground, it meant they were desperate. And we were standing in the last room carved out in this complex. It was the war room for the defending army. The room from where the battle between 3,000 villagers and their heavily armed enemies was run. But how?
What are these holes up here?
Well, these echo my voice. This is the only underground city where you see telecommunication systems. The echo in this room is much better than the other rooms, and it's gathered and through this hole up here, carried to the other floors.
Like an acoustic theater, this room was built to reverberate sound waves and channel them into a single area. A person in the room above could hear instructions given below, even when spoken at a whisper. Orders and enemy positions and movements could be communicated throughout the complex. A last line of defense against a determined enemy. But even after the threat of an attack passed, locals would wait down here until they were absolutely sure the coast was clear. That meant living underground for months at a time, so preparation was key.
This is the most important thing in an underground city.
Right.
They need to store food, even if they're not using it. Even if they're up there in their houses, they store the food.
Okay.
And because they need it when they stay here.
And it's a very good cold cellar, essentially.
Yes, the temperature is perfect in these underground cities.
The temperature down here was always the same, 15 to 16 degrees Celsius. It was the perfect temperature to keep food fresh, centuries before the advent of refrigeration. But the Christians went one step further than just storing their food. They knew any kind of contamination could quickly turn a subterranean city into a mass grave for 3,000 people.
This is chalk. Most of the underground cities had used this system to paint the walls with chalk paint. Most of the places like storages, kitchens, and places where they need hygiene, they had chalk paints on the walls. And this is an underground city where you can see the chalk.
The volcanic tufa rock that created the landscape of Cappadocia flakes off easily. Its particles fill the air and cover everything in a layer of thick tufa dust. So coating the walls of their subterranean food storage areas, wineries, kitchens, even hospitals, with chalk was considered hygienic and helped to prevent contamination. The size and scope of Oskanok illustrates just how deadly the threat of attack was, and building this massive complex wasn't easy. In one day, it is estimated that one man using a chisel could only carve a 5-foot by 5-foot area. So an entire city, 2.5 floors deep and 1 mile long, was quite a feat. But for those whose lives it saved, it was time well spent. Up next,
Jesus, magnificent.
secret underground churches.
Wow. Oh, it's really amazing.
And later,
Let's go down.
heading into a masterpiece of subterranean engineering.
In the 4th century, Emperor Constantine made Christianity the official religion of the Roman Empire. And after centuries of hiding out in these subterranean cities, Christians could finally come out of the underworld.
Even though the Christians were finally free to practice out in the open, they chose to stay underground, expanding on the subterranean cities and creating a Christian stronghold away from the eyes of the world, right here in Gureme. I was about to see the evolution of Christianity, hidden inside the caves of Cappadocia.
Jesus, magnificent.
It was hard to imagine that this valley was hiding hundreds of churches, from crude caves to intricate basilicas that rival the great cathedrals of Rome. But even more amazing is that this very site was one of the first Christian education centers in the world.
This is the first monastery of the world, and it's huge. There are approximately a couple hundred churches around this area.
These caves were used to create the first monastery of the official religion of the largest empire in the world. Monks ate, slept, and prayed in seclusion here. A solitary yet communal lifestyle like this had never happened before. The idea of monastic life came from St. Basil in the 4th century. Christianity was at its peak, and he was alarmed by his own materialism. He had lived with hermit monks in Egypt and expanded on the idea. So here in Cappadocia, he created a massive self-sufficient community of monks, the world's first monastery. They lived here until the 14th century when the Ottomans took control. This subterranean solitary world is the basis of monastic life as we know it today. But that's not all St. Basil did here. He was actually able to excommunicate those involved in prostitution trafficking, so common along major trade routes like Cappadocia, essentially cleaning up the remnants of the area's pagan past. But of the hundreds of churches and dwellings here in this monastic complex, one specific underground structure stands apart from the rest. It is believed to be one of the earliest dwellings here in Gureme, dating back over 1,000 years. Today, it's a Christian world of the dead that's been dubbed the Snake Church by locals.
This one is a very good example to the primitive church.
Okay.
This is a burial place, so watch your step. Don't fall into the grave.
Okay. These are graves here, huh?
Yes, these are the graves.
Gee.
There were bones found inside these graves.
Really?
And
these too, these small ones.
yeah, they're children's graves.
Oh, wow.
It's proof that an entire community of Christians, men, women, and children, lived in this very spot 10 centuries ago. But how is it still standing? Just like today, the 11th century Christians